This is Sports Bettor Court with Dan Lust on Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome to another episode of the Sports Bettor Court. I am your host, your judge, your arbitrator, all of the above, Dan Lust. The docket this week, we'll be talking about the Cleveland Browns, whether they would make the playoffs or not, the Rookie of the Year odds, and the Comeback Player of the Year odds. But as you know, as if you are a listener of the show, a watcher of the show, member of the viewing audience, we talk a little bit here, sports betting, but we do talk about sports law. So, Lust for Law, opening segment this week, we're going to talk a little bit about a player you might not have heard of, but you should. His name is Josh Sills. He is still yet somewhat active member of the Philadelphia Eagles. So some of you are sitting here. Who is Josh Sills? Why are we talking about him? He was a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, we'll say that loosely, up until the Super Bowl run. And in that little weird 2-week window, right before the Super Bowl was about to start, everybody, at least in our sports law world, learned about the name Josh Sills. And that is because he was accused of first-degree rape, first-degree kidnapping in a very ugly incident that occurred in Ohio. He was placed on the commissioner's exempt list, more on that in a minute. And Josh Sills has never seen a football field since then. So obviously we're in the middle of the offseason, but Josh Sills, his career probably is over at this point, regardless of what happens on these charges that we're going to talk about. Josh Sills is back in the news this week because his trial is ongoing. We're now on day 3 of the Josh Sills trial. So an incident that occurred in 2019, and really kind of ugly incident. We're not going to talk about the allegations here, but it's certainly of a kind of an ugly sexual nature, all allegations. But that very quickly resulted in Josh Sills being placed on the commissioner's exempt list, a place that he remains up until today. And I don't think there's any expectation that Josh Sills is able to play for the Philadelphia Eagles at any point during the year, despite the fact that his trial will have ended. So why are we bringing up Josh Sills? Just a little interesting lesson, right? Josh Sills, you probably have not heard of, but here's some names that you probably have heard of, right? Deshaun Watson, Alvin Kamara. Those are players with some pretty notable, we'll say legal incidents that were never placed on the commissioner's exempt list. Maybe people are saying, well, Deshaun Watson was suspended, right? Well, how about the year when he was charged of 20 plus sexual assault cases? And he just sat on the bench for the Houston Texans, not because he was disciplined by the NFL, just because they didn't feel like punishing him at that point in time. Alvin Kamara met with Roger Goodell earlier today to talk about a potential suspension. But remember, that was an incident that occurred in the Pro Bowl last year. So Alvin Kamara played out all of last season, having never been placed on the commissioner's exempt list, and now he might be. So the question is this: how does Josh Sills get placed in the commissioner's exempt list, never to see a down of football while his charges are pending, right? While he's going through his criminal trial, innocent until proven guilty. But Deshaun Watson and Alvin Kamara both were eligible to play and, were able to suit up and play in NFL games while their charges were pending, right? And mind you, everyone said, well, Deshaun Watson, now he's got his stuff in the past. Last I checked, Deshaun Watson still has 2 civil sexual assault cases pending. So a little bit of a lesson here, and lust for law. We're trying something out here. If you are a running back, you are a quarterback, you are a skill position player, it seems like the NFL wants to deal with kid gloves with you. But if you're Josh Sills, right, commissioner's exempt list, never to be heard from again. The punt god, Matt Ariza, right? Punters, we don't care about punters, I guess. We throw them to the sideline. So a little bit of lesson for Roger Goodell, right? Innocent until proven guilty means innocent until proven guilty. We can't pick our spots. We can't give quarterbacks preferential treatment. We can't give running backs preferential treatment and throw the punters and the backup offensive linemen to the wolves. If innocent until proven guilty means innocent until proven guilty, that's what it has to mean. And I think we got to go by that. That's the letter of the law. And this has been Lust for Law. On the docket today, Cleveland Browns. Will they make the playoffs? The Rookie of the Year and the Comeback Player of the Year when we come back.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty Fantasy Football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format or fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been, I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you got to have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Sports Bettor Court is now in session. It's time for tonight's litigants. First, Eytan Shander. Eytan is a sports betting analyst for Fox 29 and OddShopper. You can follow him on Twitter at Shander Show and on OddShopper's YouTube. Next, Jim Coventry, NFL Analyst at RotoWire. Jim hosts the RotoWire Fantasy Football Live Show 5 days a week at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on RotoWire's YouTube. You can also see Jim on the weekends on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports. Follow Jim on Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL. All rise for the Honorable Judge Dan Lust.
Listen, we got the upgrade here. We got the voiceovers. We got some big guests. Jim, Eytan, welcome to the show. Now, we're going to take our first bet. And for those that need to know the format, right, I think my guests have been prepped. Best 2 out of 3, right? If somebody wins the first 2 rounds, I guess we end the show early. It hasn't happened yet. But let's see what happens here. Okay. Cleveland Browns, will they or won't they? Anthony, my man, can you give us some odds for will they or won't they make the playoffs? Let's go. Yes, plus 115. No, minus 135. Eytan, let's go with you first. What's your pick here, my man?
So, all right, well, I'm on the other side of this, right? Like, because this wasn't mine initially, so I just want to make sure that I have this right here, that I'm on the no side.
You tell me whatever you're confident with, and you will roll with it.
Oh, okay. Well, I maybe I misunderstood then. If it's whatever I'm confident in, then I actually think there's more value on them to make it. I think there's value on both them and the Steelers to sneak into a wild card. The question, though, is which one of these two is it going to be, because it's not going to be both. I really like what Cleveland has done. I mean, look, Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator now, and running that defense at least, definitely a soft spot in my heart, covering him in Nashville and then seeing him win a Super Bowl here in Philadelphia, understanding what he can do with an already geared up defense and a little improvement around, especially with the corners there. So I absolutely love what they're doing. They have one of the best, if not the best, feature backs that you can just rely on in the NFL week in and week out. The question is Deshaun Watson, right? And I think you're going to get another year under his belt. If I can get this at plus 115, the only thing that would really pull me away from it would be if somebody else said the only reason why I'm not taking Cleveland to make the playoffs is because Pittsburgh would make the playoffs. But all things equal, I like it at plus 115. I've given this out on my Discord earlier this month for them to make the playoffs along with the Steelers.
Okay, Jim, let's bring in Jim. Jim, we're giving you a wild card here. Do you like the Cleveland Browns to make the playoffs? Are you rooting for them not to make it?
Absolutely going with them to make the playoffs. And there's a long shot case of plus 4,000 for them to win the Super Bowl. People will laugh at that one, which is fine. But hear me out on this one. So first of all, the Deshaun Watson factor. Yes, he was horrible last year. No question. To me, 2 years away, he just could not reacclimate to the speed of the game. We already see in training camp and back in OTAs, that's back. He's not thinking anymore. And when a quarterback can't think, he can play. He's only 28 years old, so that is in no way gone. He is an elite quarterback when he's at his best, and he will be back there. After Patrick Mahomes, you could put him in that next bucket of quarterbacks with any of them there, because we've seen him play at a top level with a pretty marginal Houston team. Weapons around him. Amari Cooper has shown that he is a very high-level receiver. They bring in Elijah Moore, 4.35 wheels. He can play the slot. They're actually using him at X. Donovan Peoples-Jones. They have David Njoku. It is a huge set of great weapons. The offensive line, not the number one in the league like they were a few years ago, still a top 6 line. But here's the thing. I expect them not to be a Nick Chubb-centric offense. They're going to spread the field with receivers, make it a Watson-centric offense. And for the first time in his career, Nick Chubb is going to run against light fronts. I don't see a single weakness on the offense, assuming Watson, as I do, is back. Outside of the Chiefs, this offense can hang with anyone in the league. That brings us to the defense. And look, we heard earlier, Jim Schwartz, the DC, what does he do well? He gets pressure without blitzing from his 4. And man, does he have 4 to get after the passer. It used to be just Myles Garrett. Jadeveon Clowney was a run defender, lucked into some sacks. You bring in Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Agbo Okoronkwo, insane pressure, and then yes. And they can cover on the back end. They have 3 good cornerbacks and a pair of good safeties. Run defense is going to be a bit improved, some health. The guys they brought in can defend. This is a team that, yes, 7 teams make the playoffs, and that's a good number, and there are some really good teams. They have an elite roster.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you here. So you guys both like the Cleveland Browns to make the playoffs, right? Just yeses? Okay. This show is about disagreement, and I guess what? Wild card for you both. The judge does not think that they are going to make the playoffs, right? Jim, I was just listening to you, right? You said, the great defense, great wide receiver, great running, assuming Deshaun Watson's great, assuming that part. Last I checked, the quarterback is the most important position in all of football. Last I checked, Deshaun Watson was a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL his last 6 games. Last I checked, he still has, like I mentioned, 2 active sexual assault cases. Jim, this one's for you. Are those cases going to get settled before the season starts? Because I'm not sure you know that.
There would be buzz and whisper about him doing time or getting put out. At this point, he already pleaded his deal with the league. It's going to get pushed off. Look, the Kamara case goes forever. We've had all these cases get pushed. At this point,
I don't know, Jim. I don't know. Eytan, let me ask you this question. Now, there's the question about on-field statistics. We can bury into the statistics all we want. But Deshaun Watson hasn't shown the ability to play through the haters, right? I think that's the big question. Yeah, there's still hecklers, right? We saw what happened to Jacksonville. Sure. We saw what went to every road arena that Deshaun Watson went to. And, these social clips of him missing targets from 1 inch away at training camp aren't helpful. Eytan, are you buying Deshaun Watson, that he will return to form as a top 10 quarterback?
So let's look at this. In order for them to make that final wild card spot, Deshaun Watson doesn't have to rekindle what he was at the height of his career. Deshaun Watson just needs to be significantly better than last year. With the full offseason now on full prep to run through everything, there is an offense and there is an offensive coordinator right up to a head coach that is physically and mentally gearing everything through that playbook to run and make it easier for Deshaun Watson, right through taking pressure off him with Nick Chubb and even throwing to running backs or tight ends out of release. So yes, the answer is yes, because he doesn't have to be back in Houston good. He just has to be better than last year, which I could see, Jim, you know where I'm going. And that's the basics you get of having a full camp with your team and your offense.
Okay, listen, I think I'm ready to.
Two of us aren't going to beat you, though. That's how this works, right? Like, we can't combine and overrule the judge.
Well, that's why usually someone picks one side and someone picks the other side. But here we are both on the same side. So I am left as your judge to just pick who made the best argument. And Jim, you made quite the big assumption that Deshaun Watson will be pretty good. I like Eytan's point that Deshaun Watson can be a top 15 quarterback and still make the point. So you know what? Technicalities here. I'm full of them. The judge makes all the rules. Eytan, I'm giving you round 1, even though you're both are going to be wrong, and Cleveland is not going to make the playoffs. It's fine. Let's hang here for 1 second. Fantasy Alarms, All Pro subscription has everything you need for the fantasy football season, including fantasy football alarms, Fantasy Draft Guide, your cheat sheet and one-stop shop for dominating your drafts. Monthly or annual subscription to Fantasy Alarm. Start your 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm All Pro and get immediate access to the draft guide. Okay, Jim, you didn't know this part, but listen, sometimes you got to deal with a little bit of a handicap. I've known Eytan for a while. Jim, you're popping onto the show here. Okay, you're both picking the same side of the line. So I don't know. You might need to really kind of bend over backwards if you want to climb over this, maybe a little bit of bias I had. But Jim, you're an expert, okay? You're on RotoWire. You're one of the best in the business. I think you can do this. I'm going to start you off with this one. Are you ready for this? Okay. Comeback Player of the Year. This is a full palette. You can pick anyone you want on this entire list. You could pick the heavy favorites. You could pick the long shots. Jim, the ball is in your court here. Where are you taking us for your bet?
I probably need 30 seconds to make my case. Damar Hamlin.
Oh.
I don't care that he's minus 285. Look, a nationwide panel of national media personnel, they vote on the Comeback Player of the Year award. Not coaches, not players. Everybody watched that Monday night game between the Bills and the Bengals last year. Our hearts were all sunk into our stomachs as we worried for that man. And Damar Hamlin, against all odds to us, pulled through in great fashion. I don't think he needs more than one game on the field to win that award. Done. Damar Hamlin.
Okay. That was actually within 30 seconds. And if you tell the judge 30 seconds, got to stay within 30 seconds. Mission accomplished. Eytan, what do you got?
I recognize two things. One, Damar Hamlin is near a 3-1 lay right now, like ridiculous favorite to win this award. I also recognize that this is before even the Hall of Fame game has been played. We are all, notice I said we collectively, because I'm involved in this as well. We are all right now prisoners of the moment. And it's not a bad thing to be a prisoner of a moment which is just celebrating Damar Hamlin. There are a couple of storylines, though, if you see play out. I don't trust Tua's health to be able to stand up straight in order to capture this award. Breece Hall, I mean, you'd have to have something really special with that. I don't think Lamar Jackson gets categorized as Comeback Player of the Year. He's going to be more in an MVP race, a 35-1. Forget that. The guy that would make sense if you were countering the minus 285 is if Sean Payton can actually write the check that he's been barking and be that quarterback whisperer, get Russell Wilson to play better. I know they lost a wideout, but it's still, you've seen Nathaniel Hackett, and before that, you playing with a banged up hand. This could be the year. You talk about getting back to an old form or an old fashion or an old flame. If Russell Wilson looks 85 to 90% of that, and Denver relies on their defense, the run game, other things around that, this team has a shot to make the playoffs, win their division. Yes, I said that. And all of a sudden, that 20-1 shot, Jim, might be at like 3-1.
Okay, listen, you guys are some big expert pickers. You pick the heavy favorite and you pick the number 2 favorite. So don't you're not fooling anybody with these 20-1 numbers here. Okay, so Damar Hamlin, let's
still
go
a
with you,
long
Jim.
shot, Judge.
It's the number 2 favorite on the board. So long shots are all relative here. But it obviously 20-1 versus minus 265. Yes, those are two very different things. So Jim, let's hang here for a second. Damar Hamlin to win Comeback Player of the Year, at least in Your Honor's opinion, and Your Honor is never wrong. He's always right. Damar Hamlin just has to return to an NFL football field, right? He just has to finish out the year. Maybe if he gets hurt with a normal Achilles or something, he'll still win Comeback Player of the Year. He's able to get back on a football field. Now, that seems very doable, right? That doesn't matter about performance. It doesn't matter about if he's playing well or not playing well. It's really just a matter of health. Now, Russell Wilson, right? There's a lot of different variables, and right, you're buying into this a little bit of 20-1, but the variables are obviously him playing well, the Broncos playing well, Russell Wilson, right? Very importantly, turning back to his athletic form, or right, agreeing for the first time in his career to be a pure pocket passer in an offense that he's never been in before. So a lot of variables for Russell Wilson. Jim, do you really think it's that easy that Damar Hamlin just has to play one game and he's going to get it? Right, just your proverbial kind of like ceremonial, like at bat, and then he gets the award.
Yeah, if it was coaches voting for it or players voting for it, may not be the case. But seriously, the way the media went through what they had to go through, answering all those questions and worried about this young man's health, that was a pivotal moment for any person that loved football. We rethought the game because of Damar Hamlin. So yes, with the media voting, it's a Damar Hamlin award.
Okay, Eytan, let's finish with you. Sell me. Russell Wilson, 20 1, right? Let's pretend DeMar Hamlin's out for a second. This is kind of a make or break moment here. We got Tua on the board. We got Brees. We got Lamar Jackson. Tua had his own health scares, concussions, potentially was a career-ending injury. You think Russell Wilson is the best of that bunch that's not named DeMar Hamlin?
I think he's got the best shot based on where his odds are. If I get 40-13, 31-5, 35-7, numbers before his final year in Seattle and first year in Denver, this now becomes about where we're talking right now, the three of us, through an entire season of football. And yes, I get it. This is a human being award that people vote on. But what I'm betting on is that enough football in store, and that people will look back and say, well, look, the guy won an ESPY. It's not like he was forgotten by any means.
The other one we're not talking about here, Coach of the Year odds. I think Peyton is right now the favorite at 10-1. So the people really do like the Broncos to come back. But to our earlier point, I'm not sure it's going to be because of Russell Wilson. He could be a very mediocre quarterback, and the Broncos just will learn how to do a little bit of field goal management, a little bit of fourth quarter management, and they could be a solid team. Just don't shoot yourself in the foot, little Plaxico Burress style. Okay, as we head into the break, I think I'm ready to announce our winner here. Jim, listen, as much as you tried, Eytan, DeMar Hamlin's going to win this award. This is a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. That number should be a 1 versus 16 style number. That should be minus 1,000. ESPYs, who cares about winning an ESPY? Comeback Player of the Year. Let's give that to DeMar Hamlin. Jim, 1-1 as we head into round 3 right after this.
The Detroit Lions select Sam Laporta, tight end, Iowa.
Had to go with your boy Sam Laporta there to pair with TJ Hawkinson.
Sammy, I couldn't double down on rookie tight ends. I think that would take it. That's taking it a little too far.
This could be one of the most exciting rookie tight end classes in a while, just based on the archetypes of these guys, and the Dalton Kincaids and the Sam Laportas. Obviously, Green Bay drafted 2 themselves with Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. So after Kincaid, I would say is probably the consensus with tight ends. Like, who do you like as far as the best ball, like end of best ball? Do you like Laporta, or is there anybody else you like more?
I do like Laporta. We're looking for guys that can be a top 2 target on their team. So any path, any argument you could make, right? So you can make the argument that Dalton Kincaid is going to be a top 2 target with after Stephon Diggs. You can make an argument that with Jamison Williams suspended, now Sam Laporta is just going to play straight up wide receiver. He looks like a wide receiver. Why can't he line up out wide at split end, right? It's like Marvin Jones and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would also throw another name in the ring, and I don't mind, since we're doing this for the fans, for the kids. He's still on the board. Luke Musgrave on your Packers. They're not super loaded at wide receiver. We like the guy Reed they drafted, but you never know. So why can't Luke Musgrave be a big slot? In fact, they drafted 2 tight ends, Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. Tucker Kraft is more of an inline guy. They might just go 2 tight ends right away. Tucker Kraft inline, Luke Musgrave in the slot. Why can't he be a target monster for Jordan Love? So those are the guys, those are the conditions that you need for a rookie tight end to succeed. They need to not only be the best pass catching tight end on the team, but a top 2 pass catcher on the team outright. That's how you get Kyle Pitts. Evan Ingram as a rookie was top 5 because Odell Beckham Jr. hurt his knee 4 weeks into the year. So that's the formula. We're looking for guys that can actually be a top target right away. Otherwise, we're playing the sit and wait long-term game, which is what you're doing with guys like Michael Mayer.
All rise for Sports Bettor Court with Dan Lust on Bettor Sports Network.
We are back for round 3. It's never happened in the history of Sports Bettor Court. Someone took the first 2 rounds. It almost happened, but then Eytan decided to go with Russell Wilson at 20-1. Jim,
Mark the tape. Mark the tape.
Okay, as we head into round 3, the AP NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year for 2022. Listen, just a little bit of history here. Garrett Wilson won it last year, right? Jamar Chase, we are the theory of the wide receiver. Then 2020, 2019, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray. And then you're going to sense a theme here. 2018, 2017, running back, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara. So we're in a weird theme here. 2 running backs in a row, 2 quarterbacks in a row, 2 wide receivers in a row. We enter 2023. We're starting a new trend here, fellas. Eytan, I'm going to let you lead this off. Who is your pick for AP Offensive Rookie of the Year?
So let's look at the odds here, right? And the interesting one, I think, is going to be who else is also at 9-1. But looking and buying into the preseason conversation from weight gain to just taking over first team reps, it's pretty clear to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, that Anthony Richardson is going to be starting and moving forward and taking over these reins and throwing a lot with that cannon that he has. And I can tell you this, Sean Steichen didn't sit behind Nick Sirianni watching him put up 60 points a week, what it seemed like, just to sit back on the football and conservatively. They may not even have their running back this year. Who knows what the hell's going on in Indianapolis? Their only choice is to throw. It's not going to transfer over into wins, but it never has to have to in the past. So I think at 9-1, especially looking at Bijan, who I understand is the heavy favorite, and even a guy like Bryce Young coming in at plus 420, I'm willing to take a chance on the raw numbers that are Anthony Richardson staying healthy, possibly playing 16, 17 games this year.
Raw numbers, I guess that you must like that 53% completion percentage. That's a good raw number, but
hey, Sean Steichen is going to fix that stuff. All right,
the judge
helps
is telling you where you
for a
should
year.
be paying attention. Jim, who do you got? Listen, you're not out of the water yet. Jim, who you got?
Judge Dan Lust, you told us about the running backs who won this in the past. They were picked in the first round with premium picks. That doesn't happen a lot these other years when other players won. Running backs weren't picked there. Bijan goes number 8. Could he have ended up in a better situation? No. He goes to play for Arthur Smith, who despite bad game script, they ran the ball 579 times last year. They have an excellent offensive line, but it's not just the line run blocking. It's scheme. It's 2 and 3 tight ends on the field. It's motion. It is Tyler Algier was about 1,000 yards, a 5th-round draft pick. Now, even if Bijan Robinson gets 60% of the carries, he's over 300 on the season. We know he can catch the football. This offense is not going to put the team on Desmond Ritter's shoulders. They're going to use their running back. And the good news for Bijan winning Rookie of the Year is he doesn't even have to be a 5 yards per carry guy. He can flirt with 1,700 scrimmage yards by just being okay. But the system he's in is going to put him in amazing shape. And I think he goes wire to wire as the Rookie of the Year.
Okay, very important. Jim, are you a fantasy guy?
I am a fantasy guy.
Okay. Over under here. Let's see if you know this answer. The judge asked the litigants do some research here. Bijan Robinson's ADP is over or under 10. 10th overall pick in the draft.
Right at 10. Maybe a tick. Yeah, right
9.
at 10.
Bijan Robinson is the 9th player being drafted in fantasy. Now, we always assume for health. We got to worry about that. Yada, 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 all this stuff. Mr. Shander, I hope you expected this question here.
I didn't.
Do you think Anthony Richardson's fantasy ADP is over or under 10? What do we think?
Oh, I can't imagine he's being drafted in the first round, no matter how big people's leagues are. So
unless your
absolutely
league is 110 players, he's not being drafted in the first round. 110 ADP. So Anthony Richardson and I give you a little bit of we dig a little bit. Anthony Richardson, obviously a physical tool, right? He could be a tremendous guy in the league, but they said that about Trey Lance. What did Trey Lance do? Trey Lance has not seen a football field.
Don't you dare do that to Anthony Richardson. Don't put that X on him.
What? A question. Where was Trey Lance drafted in the draft? What number? Where was Anthony Richardson drafted? Tools.
Okay.
Tools.
But there's a difference, right? Trey Lance coming from significantly lesser competition. Yeah, there were questions about whether or not Trey Lance could adapt. I think with Anthony Richardson, it was just a surprise of where he was taken, not that he would be in the NFL. People were questioning whether or not Lance should be in the NFL, let alone taken third, Your Honor.
After he flopped, right? The 3rd pick in the draft, I think he was ahead of some prime quarterbacks taken. But this will talk about Anthony Richardson. It's going to be a very big adaptation to him to be in the NFL. 50% completion percentage as a freshman. 59, okay, he's getting some buzz, getting closer to 60. His senior year, the one that everyone, or his junior year, actually, sophomore redshirt, the one that everyone talks about. 53% completion percentage. Yes, in the SEC has this great competition. But how is that number going to rise when he gets to the NFL, when the NFL is basically every SEC team, right? So the question is, Mr. Shander, let's hang here for a second. Do you think, and I don't doubt that Anthony Richardson could be a great NFL pro, but Rookie of the Year, I don't think this is the award that anyone is pegging Richardson for. The judge is never wrong, so I'm obviously not wrong on this. But why do you think that Anthony Richardson, I think he could be the MVP of the league, but I don't see Rookie of the Year. I don't think you see it happening that quickly. Plus, Gardner Minshew, you don't think this man is going to take any snaps away?
No, I don't. That's the big thing is I think Sean Steichen recognizes that there is talent right away that he can start with. So look, you have to apply a regular season's worth of being on a team that is willing to start a rookie every single game. They're going to be behind. I'm just looking at it from a raw number standpoint and the fact that he's at 9-1. Gibbs at 11-1. Nobody higher than that would make sense. If you want to make an argument for Stroud, I think that Richardson is just going to be in a position where his numbers are going to be better earlier on. So that probably dips to 750, maybe even 7-1. So I'm getting ahead of this number dropping. I know that for a fact. This will drop from 9-1.
That's interesting. Listen, that's the cash out move. The judge likes cash out moves. I think let's do this. I think I'm ready to make my decision here. So Bijan Robinson, I like 3-1. I like Anthony Richardson 9-1. Sometimes judges go a little bit harder on the positions that they actually buy, and they want to see if there's any flaws here, because at the end of the day, I have to invest my money with the decision I decide to go with here. 3-1 for Bijan Robinson. As much as we like running backs, gentlemen, running backs get run into the ground. They get hurt. This is a league for quarterbacks to preserve their health. Listen, I'll give you guys a little bit of a wild card here. I like the value at Anthony Richardson 9-1. I think the Colts are going to be terrible. I think Jim Irsay is out of his mind, and I think he's proven that a couple times. I think he's ready to just throw out Richardson and let him throw Hail Marys and throw the ball into the roof, just like he tried to do at his combine. Okay, gentlemen, this is a close one. Eytan, I got to give you the nod here. 9-1. We got to go big game hunting. Jim, you can't go plus 300 and then go a minus 285 bet. We got to give up better some value here. Eytan, I'm going with you, but hang here. We got to figure out what the best bet is for the week. So FanDuel 2,500 no sweat bet by using fantasyalarm.com/FanDuel. If you join FanDuel Sportsbook and deposit $10 or more, get your first free bet back up to $2,500 in bonus bets. Now, again, the winner of the show is important, but we got to go with our best bet. So I did say, Jim, I'm poo-pooing you a little bit with this minus 285, but I do think this DeMar Hamlin bet is probably the best bet on the board. I'm all about value. Do I like Anthony Richardson plus 900? Sure. Do I think the Browns are going to make the playoffs? It's a toss-up, right? We don't really know. Now, I might poo-poo people for taking big, heavy favorites, but I think DeMar Hamlin is almost automatic money, right? Who is voting on this? It's not who's going to lead the NFL in passing, which is a variable that anyone is open to. It's a merit-based system. The writers vote on these rewards, and all of the writers, everybody in all of football. I remember I was sitting in my law office, which I'm in right now. The DeMar Hamlin injury affected me physically at work in my personal life for about a week. I didn't know if the man was going to live or pass away. And I think that's going to stick with voters. We see him back in the field. I think that's going to be the story each and every week. And the story that's present each and every week is generally the one that wins that award. Jim, I'm going with yours for the best bet. DeMar Hamlin, listen, Mike could be minus 250. I'm going to bet that all the way up to minus 1,000. I'll be the guy that, again, bets on the 1 seed to never lose the 16 seed. And maybe every 50 years I'll lose my money on that. But pretty safe bet. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us on the show. You guys were both excellent. We're going with Jim's best bet. But Eytan, you are the winner, and you are not going to prison. You are safe. You get a pardon.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, all good. And we'll see everybody next week on another episode of the Sports Bettor Court. Thanks, everybody.
Sports Bettor Court is now in recess. Join us next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m., where we weigh the odds and settle the score with the Honorable Judge Dan Lust.